Well, obviously God was a creator and he made things. So we're in an industry that follows right along with how God wants us to work. He wants us to produce. He wants us to steward this world. And manufacturing is a great way to do that.
You're listening to the Faith and Work podcast, where we explore ways to serve God and others in our daily work to bring life and hope to workplaces and cities.
Welcome to the Faith and Work podcast. I'm Ross Chapman, your host for today, and I serve as the CEO at Denver Institute for Faith and Work. We are in a series called Voices from the Workplace, where we're highlighting people who are living as faithful workers and learning from their stories and experience in their industry and in their career. And I'm really excited about this series. We've been in it for about a year, and hopefully you've had a chance to check out some of the other industries we've highlighted, but we're really focusing on, no matter the industry, it serves you in some way, which is something to think about and is important. And every industry is also touched by frustration, distortion, it's broken in a certain way. And so we want to hear from people who are both trying to live out God's vision for work in their everyday experience within the realities that work is also broken. So we're going to be stepping into the world of manufacturing in this episode, and our guest is Ben Dunn. He serves as the Chief Executive Officer of Blueprint Advanced Manufacturing, which is based in Denver, and it describes itself as a production-focused manufacturer committed to precision, reliability, team ownership, humility, and stewardship of both community and industry. He's spoken publicly on the operational side of manufacturing, including modernizing, job costing, process clarity, and he just is a very thoughtful guy about the work. He also has a really interesting journey into how he got to do manufacturing, which you're going to hear about. And I'm very excited for you to learn from what Ben is thinking about, how he's processing through the question of just what does it mean to be a faithful worker in manufacturing. So Ben, welcome to the Faith and Work podcast.
Thanks for having me here, Ross. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you. I actually would love to start simply by helping people know how you got to be doing what you're doing, because I've heard a little bit of that story, and I know there's some interesting turns. But just kind of like, what's the journey of your career been to get you to Blueprint?
Well, I think, looking back on my journey from a faith-based standpoint, I do believe that God has me where I am for a reason, and I do believe the path that I took to get here is for a reason that is only known to Him, because it is a bit of a circuitous path, some might say. And so my background is in industries outside of manufacturing, predominantly in the healthcare setting, and I actually worked several different jobs growing up. I worked for several years for a tree service. I worked in retail. I worked in a couple other different industries, but the bulk of it was in healthcare, and a large portion of that was as a paramedic. And, we were talking before this podcast started, Ross, about the impact that has had for me and my journey and what I'm doing now. And that's been probably the most profound period of time in my life when it comes to my professional career. So I worked as a paramedic for about 15 years. And, during that time, you are working in a work environment that is unique, that most people don't have the privilege of experiencing. It is stressful at times. It is boring at times, but it really is a unique experience from a professional standpoint. You're working with people from all walks of life, learning how to communicate with different types of people, how to work in a dynamic environment, high stress, sometimes life or death situations. Yeah. And when you move on to other aspects of work past that, things don't seem quite as stressful as you might think if you hadn't had that experience before. So that was a great period of my life. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Well, we were talking before we started recording, and you said something really fascinating, because I noticed you have an MBA, and I was thinking, sometimes I think like, maybe I should get an MBA. And probably a lot of our listeners think, maybe I should get more education in that thing. And you were like, the MBA wasn't as valuable as your experience as a paramedic for what you're doing now, which is really fascinating. So you've said a little bit more, but like, what other things could you say about your experience, 15 years being a paramedic, being in healthcare, all kinds of different people? Like, how is that translating to leading a manufacturing company?
Sure. So even during the time that I worked as a paramedic, I think I've always been driven. I've always been motivated to accomplish things, to help the team accomplish things, to drive and see results. When I was a paramedic, I functioned in different capacities. Obviously, I took care of patients, which I loved, and I also mentored new trainees, new paramedics. I taught formally paramedic training programs, and just love seeing people develop and grow in their career. And I took that into the healthcare administration path after I stopped working the streets as a paramedic, and had the opportunity to work with some really amazing leaders, some poor leaders, and learned who I wanted to be as a leader as a result of that experience. And found that I started to make the distinction between a job and a vocation. While the bulk of my experience was in healthcare, I found that what I really liked doing is help build teams and see the teams be successful. And I was able to kind of pull that from my experience as a paramedic into the healthcare administration career after that, and then dovetail that into manufacturing as well. So yeah, I think the experience, the path along the way has, in a variety of different ways, helped prepare me for what I'm doing now.
That's cool. Okay, so tell us the moment where it was like, all right, now I'm going to go work for this manufacturing thing. I'm going to be the CEO of this company. Like, how did that happen? How did you go from paramedic, health administration to, all right, now I'm going to be the CEO of this manufacturing shop?
Well, this will make my mom happy. I'll tell the lemonade stand story.
Oh, perfect.
This is
great.
I think I've always had, an entrepreneurial or, managerial leadership mindset. I had a lemonade stand as a kid and started doing that, like the quintessential lemonade stand, and then noticed that there was less cars coming by during the afternoon during the weekdays in the summer. And so I noticed there were more cars coming by in the mornings. And so we started doing a coffee stand, and we made fresh baked bagels, and I employed some of my fellow kids from the neighborhood. And,
awesome.
So that's kind of where it started. Yeah. And so I do believe that God has brought me to this place because it is a unique journey, and I can't explain everything and the whys behind where I am and why I'm here. But I felt something change in the beginning of 2022. It felt like the right time to make a change for a variety of different reasons, professionally, spiritually, and otherwise. So I had been researching, what am I going to do if, I've had this desire to run a business for years and years and just kind of put it to the side, taking care of patients and doing a different thing. And so I knew it was the time, and I'd been researching how to do that. And, I had two paths. I could take over an existing business, or I could start something from scratch. And at the time, I was the sole provider for our family, have three young kids, and to quit my job and start a startup from scratch would have been very, very challenging. So I decided to go the route of taking over an existing business. And, I found a business broker who was willing to represent me and help me find those businesses. We looked at different types of businesses in different industries. Healthcare was a bonus, but not a necessity. And really, my experience in that setting is actually very similar to manufacturing. Lean manufacturing, lean principles stem from the Toyota manufacturing system, and healthcare systems adopted those many, many years ago. Wow. So working in that lean environment was actually very similar to working in a manufacturing environment from a lean standpoint.
Wow. Okay, so entrepreneur through acquisition, and there's probably a lot we could explore there on that, but that is not what this conversation is about. So now that we know how you got to where you're at today, Ben, help us understand, like, what would we experience if we stepped into your shop? What are you guys making?
Sure.
How many people does it take to make this thing? What kind of machines, just help us imagine kind of what that looks like.
Sure. So we are a contract manufacturer. So essentially a customer comes to us and shows us a print of a part they would like us to produce at a certain quantity, asks if we have the capabilities to produce it, and we say yes or no. And if we say yes, we produce it for them. And we are predominantly a CNC machine company. So we have 17 CNC machines, lathes and mills. And we also have a secondary operations department and a robust quality department with a mechanical engineer, overseeing all of our quality initiatives within the company. So if a customer needs a part, we develop a process for producing that part with the equipment that we have, run it through that process, maintain quality throughout production, and ship it to the customer.
That's cool. Okay. So tell us about like one or two of your favorite, like, hey, we make a part for this thing that creates this cool thing in the world.
So it's funny, a lot of the parts that we produce, we don't really know exactly what the end product is.
Oh, wow.
Some of them go into engine controls for large ships or large equipment out there. So we have customers who are large companies, and we also have smaller mom and pop companies. There's a customer that we have that makes sanding discs for woodworking. So we produce these metal discs that have sandpaper adhered to them, and they use them in garages.
Yep.
So it's fun to be a part of the small projects and also the large ones. But we are predominantly a production manufacturing company. So a lot of machine shops focus on prototypes, small production runs, quick turnaround. Aerospace companies that need, 2 of these complex parts tomorrow. We are focused more on moderate to high production.
Wow. Okay. So what I'm getting the picture is there's a lot of complexity and precision involved. And often your employees don't necessarily know how that product is going to be used in the world, or they don't get to see it and experience it. How have you developed a culture in your workplace that helps people wrestle with that reality of like, hey, I'm maybe just a piece in this big puzzle. I don't see how I fit in, or like, how have you guys talked about that? How do you help your team think through those kinds of things?
That is a challenge, especially this day and age. We've had a lot of younger employees who have joined the company. Some have stuck with it, some have left. And I think it's for that specific reason. I remember listening to a podcast, who was it by? Simon Sinek. He was talking about how he had employees come in, young employees who came in, and they were highly motivated and driven and very excited. And then 18 months later, they came to him and said, I'm going somewhere else. This isn't working. I'm not changing the world. And I see that a lot nowadays as young people coming in and wanting to, and it's great to want to have impact, but I think we have people coming in who are wanting to be Elon Musk and, truly transform the world. But I think sometimes we miss the opportunity to provide impact in the day-to-day interactions we have with our family, with the people that we interact out in the world, or the people that we are interacting with at work. And that's really what I try to focus on personally, is the impact that I can have on my team, or the people I interact on a day-to-day basis. But it's difficult now. Thankfully, when I took over the company about 4 years ago, all the employees, except for one that were there when I took over, are still there now. And actually, we have somebody who's been with the company for over 40 years who's retiring this year.
Wow.
And so you have people like that who I think just grew up at a different time where work ethic was viewed differently. And I'm thankful that that culture has been able to persist in the company because some of those longstanding employees stuck around and are helping to shape the next generation, at least within the 4 walls of our building.
Yeah, well, this is one of the reasons we're doing this Voices from the Workplace series, getting a chance to really, peel back some of the layers of like, what does it actually look like to work in this industry? And I think manufacturing, I certainly have zero experience, but I think this could be a big question for people as they're thinking about, I'm making something, but if I don't see the end product, that's challenging. And I love the way that you're approaching it. And my question is really going to be, how did you come to see the work that you guys are doing as an opportunity to participate in what God's doing in your coworkers' lives or their families' lives or the broader community? And you guys have been very intentional about that. But, was there something that shifted for you that just said like, hey, I recognize we don't necessarily know where all this stuff's going. Maybe the purpose or like change the world, energy isn't there, but here's some really important things that kind of make our world a little smaller, give us a chance to focus on the relationships around us. Did that just occur to you one day? Or how does that continue to shape what you're doing, and how did you get there?
Sure.
Hi, my name is Parker Nabnett. As a financial advisor with I Am Financial, I am enriched by Denver Institute's programming and content, including this podcast. I love Denver Institute's mission to prepare people to serve God and others in their daily work so that workplaces and cities are transformed. I know my monthly donation gives the organization I love reliable support. Plus, I get great benefits like free or reduced admission to events and access to digital content. To become a monthly partner, please visit the Give page at denverinstitute.org.
Well, and how did I get there is an interesting way to put it. I think it's an ongoing journey. And I'm glad you asked this question because this is something I wrestle with every day. And we were just, before this podcast, we did a faith and work leadership lunch, and I've been to Business for a Common Good. And you hear these companies who are unquestionably bringing glory to God in what they do. Mm-hmm. Their mission is inherently biblical and mission driven. And, you know, I can't help but benchmark myself, our company, with those organizations. And I have to pause when I do that, because when I took over this company, I did so specifically with the intention of stewarding the company through a biblical lens in a way that's pleasing to God. And to be honest with you, Ross, I don't know what that means. And I have to pause when I find myself judging, what am I doing? Am I having a big enough impact in a way that's pleasing to God? Am I having a big enough impact on the world? And just trust that God is doing what he's doing with our company every day. I pray every day over our team, over our company, and ask for the wisdom from him to help steward the company in a way that's pleasing to him. And, you know, I really need to remind myself that I just need to pay attention to what direction he's moving us, moving me, moving the company. I do believe that he is working with us and moving the company in a direction that's pleasing to him. We just have to follow that and pay attention and be good stewards of his gifts of what we're producing. So in terms of intentionality there, I really try to conduct myself in a way that reflects God and his glory in the best way I possibly can. We do try to facilitate a culture that allows people to have the freedom to develop personally and professionally. We started a book club a couple of years ago, and we need to rekindle that. It's kind of fallen by the wayside last year, but that was a great way for people to recommend books on personal development, to help bring us together as people, to learn and grow as a team. And actually, the first book that we read as a group, it was interesting. I presented it to the team. I said, hey, I want to read this book. Does anybody want to read it with me? That's how it started. Mm-hmm. And the book was How Then Shall We Work? Mm-hmm. It's about understanding the biblical doctrine of work. And half the company joined the book club, which is pretty crazy. And so that was a really great first book to read. It was a great book for me. It's really helped shape my understanding of faith and work. You know, it's nice to be a part of this organization too, to kind of continue that understanding and journey of learning how to integrate the two.
Yeah, well, Ben, I mean, one of the main reasons I asked you to join the podcast was because I knew you would be honest about, you know, what does this actually look like? Yes, there's business and for-profit and nonprofit work that's just easier to make a direct connection to say, hey, I can see the good that's creating in God's world. It's restoring a brokenness. It's doing something that's in alignment with what God would want to see in the world, or people get to experience life as he intended a little more. When we're just thinking about the product we create or the service we provide. But we would say there's so much more, as you're pointing out. You know, the workplace is a place of formation. You know, it's shaping the kind of people that we become, and you're clearly aware of that. And just being honest about, well, how do I do that well? And I just think it's important for the people to hear, like, we figure it out together. You know, there's not a pat answer that's like, well, this is how you do that, because it's a unique context. Manufacturing is a unique industry. The work that you're doing is unique within that. And so it's really like you're there for this purpose that God has you there for, meaning like I'm here to participate as a person who's following Jesus in this particular context with these particular people, with these resources. And the job at the end of the day is faithfulness. Yeah. And what that looks like could be different every day. I mean, you know, so I just appreciate your honesty in that. And thanks for sharing what that's looked like.
That being said, I mean, we have a full manufacturing company that does amazing work with amazing people. I'm optimistic that there might be a good synergy out there with somebody who's looking to produce something in a way that's can provide a overt impact on the world.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can use the company for that at some point in the future.
Well, speaking of that, like tell us from your vantage point, being in this manufacturing world, what's good or deeply needed about manufacturing? When you think of kind of what God would want to see in the world, how does manufacturing, what's the best vision for that?
Yeah. Well, obviously God was a creator and he made things. So we're in an industry that follows right along with how God wants us to work. He wants us to produce. He wants us to steward this world. And manufacturing is a great way to do that. And one, I think it teaches about hard work, teaches us about appreciation, and everything that there's a software that we use, and the previous owner of the company, his name is Paul, and he wears a shirt every single day. Even I think in his personal life, it says "Thank a machinist." It's because if you look around, we look around in this room, there are a lot of things around us right now that are made by machinists on a CNC machine in a manufacturing company. So if you look around the world, if you pay attention, a lot of the things that we're using to conduct our lives are made by machinists or in a machine shop. So yeah, we're doing work that isn't always appreciated or seen by the world. A lot of people don't know what a machine shop even is. And so, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does, definitely. Well, the flip side would be, what do you think is broken about manufacturing? Where is it contributing negatively kind of to society or to humanity or to the individual worker?
Yeah. Well, I think there was, historically has been a shift away from U.S. manufacturing, and we're now starting to see a resurgence back, a trend back towards reshoring of parts that were offshored, particularly before COVID, but long before that. Mm-hmm. And so we as a country have created some fractures in manufacturing that has impacted our country and our economy, and it's good to see that coming back now. But I think that is some of the challenges that we are facing now as an industry are a result of that. We are experiencing a skills gap, an employment gap for people going into manufacturing because we, again, as a society, have shifted people away from that to four-year universities as being the only way. But again, like I said, we are seeing that kind of pendulum swinging back in the other direction right now, which is encouraging. But the skills gap is difficult. I think there are economic decisions, particularly in Colorado and Denver, that make it challenging to operate. We are an extremely lean company, and we pride ourselves in being efficient and lean, and we continually working on that every single day to get more and more efficient and lean. But that only goes so far. It would be great to see some policy changes that helped encourage manufacturers to not only stay in Denver or Colorado, but come to Denver or Colorado to help build our economy. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges right now in our industry in this area is it does not seem like it's encouraging for businesses like ours to be successful or come to the state or to the city to employ people.
Yeah, well, that's good because you are definitely in an industry that has been impacted by not just policy decisions, but also mentalities. I think you're right. Just like a new vision or willingness to say like, hey, you don't have to get a 4-year degree. You can go get a skill like right now and start earning income and start making things that are really going to be needed. And this is another kind of tying into another question, which is, when AI started being like a really big deal a few years ago, I think a lot of people felt like, oh, that's going to replace like manufacturing type jobs. And we've actually seen maybe the opposite of that.
We are seeing AI and automation prolifically utilized in manufacturing. We are utilizing both at Blueprint and are continuing to expand utilization of both. And, I think the inclination is to say it's going to replace workers. And I'll tell you right now, we can't find the workers that we need. We can't find the people to do the jobs, like you're saying, especially some of the repetitive type jobs, which we're trying to automate. We already have automated a lot of that. We continue to automate that. And so it's not really replacing jobs. There are not as many people there to do those jobs anymore. Right. That's just the reality. And also with utilizing AI and automation and the collaboration of the two will allow those who are choosing to make a career in this profession to earn more, to do more, to be able to run multiple machines to do higher level stuff that makes them more valuable, which allows companies to pay them more. So ultimately, I think it's going to be good for those who stick with it and continue down that path as a career. And really the people, so to speak, it's replacing are the jobs that people don't really want to be doing anyway.
Well, that's kind of encouraging to hear. What would you say, maybe just coming at the same question in a different way, like what parts of manufacturing should never become less human?
That's an interesting question. Should never become less human. I mean, you're always going to need humans within the industry. That goes without saying. I know AI is helping to automate sales and marketing functions, which I think we are using and we will continue to use those. But I would not want to remove the human relationship between us and our customers. Yeah. A lot of customers are already doing that, removing themselves entirely, and I think that's problematic. I can tell you right now, we have customers who get in a bind and they call us on our cell phone or text us and say, hey, we need this tomorrow. Is there any way you can do it? And we do it and we drive it up to them, northern end of the state, and they have their part there and they can continue and not have to shut their production line down. So that type of stuff comes with personal relationships. And obviously, you need people to solve problems that machines currently can't solve. And again, I think elevating our current staff to higher levels to be able to do more and manage more and take some of the laborious parts of their job off their plate, allow them to use their brains.
That's really cool. Yeah, you're right. We keep going on this thread for a long time. Yeah. Help me understand what you would say is like the best way being in a manufacturing type job, or let's just say your employees at Blueprint. Like, how is that work shaping them in the best way? And then the flip side would be, how do you see it as possibly sort of deforming them, shaping them in a way that's not as good?
I mean, I think, again, the nature of creating things is very aligned with, God, right? I mean, he's a creator, and to be able to produce things and see the outputs of your efforts. I know when I was, working for the tree service and running a tree crew many, many years ago, and, you look back on how hard you worked and you got to see the accomplishments of your day, man, there's nothing more rewarding than that. And I would say that the people who are producing parts in our company are able to do that. They're able to take a piece of metal and turn it into something very, very precise that has a function that's going to be utilized in the world and appreciated. It's an honor to be a part of that. And I guess I don't know what to say about how it could be deforming people. I can't really see in that way.
I think, well, what you said on the positive side would be, people could have a sense of contribution, accomplishment. They can feel proud about what they made. I mean, one of the cool things in manufacturing, even if you don't know where that part that you made is going to end up, you still get to go home and go, I created a thing. I think there's a lot of people in kind of knowledge industries where they go home and they're like, I don't know if I did anything today, actually. I can't put my hands on it, This is one of the reasons I always liked mowing the grass, which I don't have in Denver anymore. So I think that's a really cool thing. I was kind of wondering if there are things about working in a shop that become repetitive or become like they just don't have agency in this, or I've lost my sense of camaraderie with the team because, we all have to stay in our little sections and, there's not enough interaction with each other. And so what could be an opportunity for community and belonging has become more of a doubling down on the isolation we feel in society. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up,
Yeah.
But from your vantage point, seeing it every day and seeing your employees, is there anything that you're like, oh, that's something that we could work on because I want a fuller life for my employees?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. There's a couple different ways to answer that. One, I would say I have appreciated every single job I've ever had except for one. And, I say that and that is true for me. But apparently when I read that book, How Then Shall We Work, that's not true for 70% of the population, I think is what the figure was in that book. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's God shaping my heart or that's a conscious free will decision on my part to view work in the way that I view it. My wife will make fun of me. We go on trips and I'm fixing the dishwasher at the Airbnb or whatever.
Oh, wow.
You know?
So you get 5-star rating. So for sure.
But I have always taken a lot of pride in everything I've done, whether it's been monotonous or difficult or whatever it may be. I think there's an opportunity to honor God in everything that we do. In our work, the things that we have to do at home and their interactions in the world. And so I think some of it is helping people to reframe their viewpoint on the work that they're doing. Sometimes it is going to be monotonous. Sometimes you may be doing the same thing for, many, many months, and then we'll move you on to a different project and you'll get a little bit of reprieve and then you may go back to that other thing. Who knows? But so I think reframing, helping people to reframe their expectations and to maybe hopefully point out the appreciation for what they are doing and the benefits that they're having. I mean, if they weren't there, that part wouldn't be able to go to the customer and the end user of that product. So everyone is having an impact in what they're doing.
That's great. Well, I just love the chance to just ask you questions and pick your brain and just get an inside look at manufacturing and how you're wrestling through faith and work integration. What does it look like to show up as a person who's following Jesus, leading a manufacturing company? So Ben, thanks so much for sharing with us, for the way you've gone after this work and the way you're approaching your work in general. It's an encouragement for sure.
Oh, thanks for having me, Ross. I appreciate it.
Well, I hope you all have enjoyed hearing from Ben. I certainly had a great time just having a real conversation about the struggles and the joys and the tensions of just what does it mean to integrate faith and work holistically. And I just want to encourage all of you, hopefully you heard this from Ben and you've heard it from the Faith and Work podcast and the Denver Institute team before, but there is no job that is just a calling that you have to find. Your job, whatever it is an opportunity for you to express the calling that we all have, which is simply to be in union with Christ and to participate with him in his mission wherever he has us today. So may that encourage you. There's an opportunity for you to love or serve someone through your work today. I'm confident, and I hope that you'll be encouraged by what Ben talked about today in that. If this conversation has expanded your imagination for what faithfulness might look like in daily work, or if you've just enjoyed the Voices from the Workplace series, we'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review for us on whatever platform you're listening. We'd be greatly appreciative of that. Or maybe just send this episode to a friend who needs a little bit more hope and vision for their everyday work. Thanks for listening.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the Faith and Work podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend. The Faith and Work podcast is produced by Denver Institute. We believe that when Christians work faithfully, the world will taste the hope and life that Jesus provides. To learn more or to make a financial contribution, visit denverinstitute.org.